The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hey, this is Matt Landry, the voice of Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars The Clone Wars. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars. This is where the fun begins.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Angela Sealana, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. From movies to books to TV shows and more, we're looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in Star Wars. And today we are diving into the Tales of the Empire series, especially the episodes talking about the story of Morgan Elsbeth. So on the crew today, we have, besides me, of course, our artist in residence, Kathryn Laffrey. Hello, Kathryn.
Hello, Angela.
And I know you'll be happy that we're talking about Thrawn as well.
Yeah.
We've also got with us the Dadalorian, Patrick Mason. Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, Angela.
Well, glad you're here. And yes, let's talk about this 3-episode arc. So to keep our minds fresh on what happened, I'm going to read y'all a summary about Morgan Elsbeth from StarWars.com. So, a Force-sensitive Night Sister witch, Morgan Elsbeth, was one of the few who survived the massacre of her people. During the Clone Wars, fueled by rage and an intense sense of revenge, she then built a business empire for herself, constructing ships for the Imperial Starfleet while simultaneously destroying worlds to harvest their resources. It was during this time that she first interacted with Mithra Nurodu, the Chiss Imperial, better known as Thrawn.
Good job. Good job.
Good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And she became his loyal follower. She has eventually established herself in the city of Caladan as the magistrate of the Force planet Corvus, protected by her own HK-87 droids and Lang, a hired gun. It was here that she continued to amass her forces in secret, even after the fall of the Empire, as she prepared to travel to distant worlds in an effort to find the missing Grand Admiral. Maybe not so admirable.
Not
Admiral.
so admirable.
All right. Well, before we dive in, y'all, we want to take a brief moment to recognize the people who make this podcast possible. In your ears, our patrons, including Judson G, David L. Sindel T, Stephen H, and Michael A. And if you haven't heard yet, SQPN.com has, after more than a decade, gotten a redesign, yay, which was very needed for some techie behind-the-scenes issues. And, you know, that's just one reason we are so grateful to our supporters who keep us going. So if you're not a patron and you would like to help StarQuest go to infinity and beyond, you can see how you can do so at sqpn.com/give. Thank you all so much. All right, so Tales of the Empire series. Let's talk about, first of all, just overall impressions of the series itself, and then we can kind of, focus in on Morgan Elsbeth. So, Patrick, what was your overall impression of the Tales of the Empire?
Generally, I liked it. I think they did a fairly good job with the two storylines, kind of paralleling the Tales of the Jedi. You had in Tales of the Jedi, so you had Ahsoka's story and her kind of birth through into the Jedi, and in Tales of the Empire, you have Morgan's story and her sort of into the Empire. And then you have on the flip side, you have sort of Dooku's fallout with the New Republic and the Jedi Order, and you have and of course the name
Barriss Offee.
Her sort of falling out with the Empire and figuring out, no, this is not what I actually wanted to do with my life, kind of a thing. And so I really love it when shows and /series do that dichotomy. They show it from both angles, and they show the same thing happening from both sides. I had a little bit of a problem with Morgan's just because of the time leaps between her shows. I remember it was expressed very well by my daughter going, is she like with Darth Vader or before Vader or after Vader? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, let's keep watching.
So all of those things happen. But I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was also very interesting. We get to see yet another group of Force users who do the Force differently. And I always like exploring that concept. And so we saw the Mountain people, right? And their sort of approach to it as we know how to fight, but we don't. And instead we kind of live our peaceful life. Mm-hmm. And good approach, solid approach.
Dadalorian approved. So going to the Mamalorian, Kathryn, what did you think of the series Tales of the Empire?
The series as a whole was interesting just because it tied in storylines that I like, Thrawn, and other things. But at the same time, it felt like it was band-aiding together as many storylines as possible to try to make sense of all these different things and where Morgan fits in and why Barriss is Barriss, I guess. I don't know. That timeline was odd for me. She got old too fast at the end of that. I was really confused. And then it felt like too, and I only understood this after watching Screen Crush talk about it. I felt like it was trying to tie in too much video game knowledge. And I'm just like going, okay, you guys are starting to lose me now because I don't play the video games. Sorry. I read the books and watch the movies. So some of it was just like, too much tie-in, too many Band-Aids.
Okay, so maybe not Mamalorian totally approved, but I think for me, I'm kind of, I'm the Bendu, I'm in the middle. So I thought it was interesting. It was definitely different. It felt different at least, and maybe it should because it's about like more so people that were with the Empire for a good portion of their existence, I guess. So I think it brought some interesting, different aspects, different, I guess, angles of people's stories that we kind of got to see that backstory. And I appreciated that it had to do also with their relationships as well. Like it wasn't just them, but it also had to do with their relationships with other people that were surrounding them and how that affected their story. Because that's realistic, right? People aren't just an island, so to speak. And it wasn't just a whole lot of what's going on in their head. So I liked that. I really loved the Kevin Kiner soundtrack. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we get into this episode arc with Morgan Elsbeth. But I guess I'm sort of in the middle because I can totally see your, I guess, concerns about the time leaps and how that was a little bit jarring to watch, especially if you watch them all in a row and not, waiting in between to watch. So let's just dive into Morgan Elsbeth then. I want to know how watching these 3 episodes about her and seeing what her actual backstory was, how did that compare to your expectations, as we sort of knew that we were going to get, this backstory about her, but we only knew a very small portion of her and her connection, I guess, to Star Wars stories that we knew. So what did you think of her backstory overall? And did you have any expectations or anything like that. Kathryn?
Well, it's interesting because during the live action stuff, as far as her tie-in to the Night Sisters, I had always thought of her in the live action as a wannabe Night Sister. Not that she was ever part of the culture in any way, because she just didn't seem to fit in. And so that's why, to me, it was like, okay, this is like a Band-Aid solution, because to me, the, how would you say it? The monogamy of the oneness of the Night Sisters visually in the Clone Wars. It was like, okay, they are this one unified culture, and very much everybody's fitting this box. And then they have their guys where we get Savage and Maul from. And so there was like this, just that was it. I didn't even think there's anything else on the planet other than what we saw in the Clone Wars. So to me, I was kind of like, what's going on here? And I was not expecting this to be her backstory, let alone to hear her calling out to her biological mother. Because to me, the Night Sisters were all sisters, and their creation was always in mystery because of how they had their mates on the other side of the planet, the warriors and stuff. So it was kind of, it just changed so much in my head where I'm going, wait, what's going on in Star Wars? I don't get it right now. So I was just kind of unexpected. I just felt like, yeah, this is how we make her fit in now that we said she's a Night Sister. As if like when she was first introduced, she wasn't supposed to be a Night Sister, but now all of a sudden we got to tie the witches in somehow.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. What about you, Patrick?
For me, I thought it made her make a lot more sense because going from, in the live action stuff, going from what she is in The Mandalorian, where she's just this imperial sort of magistrate kind of living the imperial life post Imperium. And
I gotta ask one thing though. You always thought of her as an imperial because she never seemed as an imperial. She always seemed like her own warlord. It was like all in her own. I guess because I never thought of Thrawn as a pure imperial either.
Yeah,
or see her as one.
Right. So like the Empire as the Empire existed for such a short time frame, and the post Endor basically Empire turns into this band of warlords fighting each other more or less, and I don't know if that's really how it plays out. You know, it seems like how it plays out in what we see given the new canon and all that, but what we had in the old canon, the Legends material, it was just this whole bunch of warlords, and with Thrawn as kind of coming in and being able to unify them for a while, and eventually Pelion really stepping into the unification role. And so her being a warlord and being an imperial at the same time doesn't disconnect in my mind, because to me the empire as like one unified empire was just like, you know, a dozen years maybe, basically as long as Vader was Vader, you know, is basically the time frame. I guess it's Luke's lifetime. So 15. How old is he when he goes off? That's
18, 15,
yeah.
16.
So something like that. So she always just strikes me as like your average imperial. Warlord's a good way to put it, but though, yeah, like that's and so Ahsoka, having her suddenly be a Night Sister was very jarring. I was like, what? Like, what do you, where's this coming from? Like, what? And so this, I think it was, and like you're saying, sort of a Band-Aid, but it also kind of makes a little more sense of her, both from where she ends up as an Imperial warlord, and where she came from, and why she would pursue the path she did in Ahsoka. I do agree, it does feel a little Band-Aid-ish. And the yeah,
that's the term that we have now created.
Yeah,
Band-Aidish.
It feels very Band-Aidish.
Not one of those cute Band-Aids. No, it's not a Grogu Band-Aid.
You get a Kylo Ren Band-Aid.
Big red lightsaber across it. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I I tend to agree with Patrick in that I saw her originally. I saw Morgan as like a contractor for the Empire, you know? So like I didn't see her as like, you know, the typical British like imperial persona, but she definitely seemed like a strong character that had something going on behind the scenes that was very mysterious, and she didn't just seem like a typical bad guy villain kind of person. She always had something extra to, you know, I mean, I think we were introduced to her, correct me if I'm wrong, but in that Mandalorian episode with when we first saw Ahsoka live action, the Jedi.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And she had that spear that was Mandalorian a spear, and she had this unique fighting style, so there was like something different about her, you know. And so to see her in this context, I think it does make a little bit more sense. I don't know about the band-aidishness of it, but I guess we'll get into that. But let's start off with her fears. So we have this arc that goes fear, anger, hate, right? These are the names of the episodes: the path of fear, the path of anger, the path of hatred. So I have to say, the first episode, I love that it opens with Dies Irae, which, if you're not familiar with what that is a prayer from the Mass that was set to Gregorian chant. And it's like used in movies all over the place for like doom moments, like terrible, awful things are happening, or there's some drama that's gonna, you know, threaten. So this prayer from the Mass is from the Mass for the dead. And so Dies Irae, it's about like the Last Judgment. So it opens with this, and we see all this fire, and there's like fighting, and the Night Sisters are trying to defend themselves from General Grievous and his robot army, droid army. I liked seeing them fighting because the Night Sisters are cool. I mean, they are the ultimate witch clan in Star Wars, in my opinion. Just saying. Because now we have like a whole bunch
so far. Yeah,
like the evil version of the elves in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, right. That's a good way to put it. So yeah, but it was really sad to just see this genocide, you know, and nobody likes General Grievous. I mean, come on.
Likes him as a person.
I've never like, I don't know.
Arm.
Yeah. It's annoying. He's just annoying. That cough and everything.
And his laugh.
Yeah.
I love his laugh. It's such a good, like it's like the Joker's laugh. It's just like unnerving. True. Like it's not as bad as the Joker's laugh is, but it has that sort of like unnerving, tinny, badly set up microphone feel to it, and it's like it makes you angry and scared at the same time.
It was neat to see how they wove in all the scenes that were in Clone Wars. So it was like, okay, so they're like filling gaps between scenes that were in the Clone Wars to fit Morgan into it. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I mean, they're definitely valiant warriors, but it was sad to see that they just didn't stand a chance against the sheer numbers of Grievous's army. So
there's one part that was really scary for me. That's because of a reoccurring nightmare I used to have as a kid. Man. And it was when you see her laying down in the ash, and she's like laying down dead. Because I don't know why, but I used to always have warrior dreams as a kid. And almost every nightmare, there'd be a point in time where I had to lay down and fake like I was dead. And I was so afraid of like Grievous or someone like coming up to her at that point in time and giving her a little nudge or something, or some of the droids like poking at her. It's just, I was just glad it was the Mountain Clan that came up to her and not something else. Cause I was like, oh, don't make it like one of my nightmares.
Wow. That's intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I did not watch scary movies. So I don't know, what's in my head.
Yeah. Well, they definitely set her up as very vulnerable in that, in that state. And so I think that helps us to understand why she's so afraid, it was obviously very traumatic, right? To lose her whole culture, everybody that she knew. But you're right. Yeah. She's adopted by the Mountain Clan. What did you guys think about the Mountain Clan and like their theology and philosophy? Patrick?
I really liked it. Like I always enjoy seeing other versions of, okay, we have a bunch of superpowered people. How did they cope with the fact that they have superpowers? And I enjoy seeing the various ways that plays out and how that works. And I liked the whole, we have our way and we have our path. And it's a very kind of calm and meditative. They all dress very similar. They try and set up their abode sort of, working with the natural rock face, that kind of thing. They go hunting and they're using like actual bow and arrows versus lights, I don't know what to call those. Like,
right.
The Night Sisters were using the bow,
there is a term,
bow and arrows.
I don't remember what they're called, but yeah.
The bows. So that I liked sort of that version of that approach before. We didn't get a lot of it, right? We just got a very little bit of it. What's her name? The mother in the group, her ability to teleport and like shoot out a force explosion. I mean, super cool, right?
Yeah.
I always enjoy seeing different force powers on display.
I like that you made observations about like how they were dressed and how they like the aesthetic part of it. I'm sure probably Kathryn, you picked up on that too, but that does really kind of inform more about who they are as a culture.
Yeah, their cute little cloister habits as they had on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't showing their hair off. They were keeping it all.
Nope.
All
and it was interesting though how each one of them had their head wrapped slightly different. So some had more of a straight up and down like the mother, and others had the little, I don't know, fox ears kind of wrap. I was like going, which cloister are you guys mimicking? It's like Sound of Music. Are you the Flying Nuns? I don't know. So it's like the Star Wars nuns, I guess. So, but yeah, very interesting. And I did notice like that closeness to nature when you see their little wind fans along the wall and stuff like that. It was kind of neat. Yeah. And then the glowing rocks and everything was blue glowing. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. Because when you read about Dathomir and how it is just like saturated with this dark side of the Force presence, to see this blue and mountainous, I'm like going, that's not Dathomir. Where's the red glow? Where's, it just kind of, I was like, felt like we were on another planet. So it threw me off just a little bit. I mean, it's nice to see them there. And the mother's little teleport boom was awesome.
Yeah, now that you bring that up, whenever I think of like Mother Talzin, for example, I think of like that green magic that she uses to kind of, do a whole bunch of freaky stuff and and that does, I mean, the Mountain Clan is very much seems like a foil for the Night Sisters, or at least for Morgan's experiences, specifically with like all that fire, and now we get them, they're on the mountain. It's like more peaceful. Typically in theology, mountains are associated with like, mountaintop experiences. You're closer to the divine, so, so it's sort of like this sanctuary, almost like up in the mountains, and they're looking down into the valley and it's all just burning, and, like you said, the blue. Typically, I think when we think of like a force push or energy or whatever, force field or something. Like we think of like this bluish white, right? Kind of color.
Like third season Mandalorian when they're it's Grogu protecting the Mandalorian and oh gosh, what is her name? I forgot, but from the fire, he is projecting that sort of blue orb around them. So,
Bo-Katan?
Yes, Bo-Katan, yes.
Yeah. So it's almost like the Mountain Clan's relationship with the Force is maybe like more pure almost than the Night Sisters, which is kind of like magic-y force wielding, which is, I don't know, it seems to be like that's just how it comes off to me. So
it's interesting. Whenever they talk about magic, the first thing I think of are the magicians in the New Testament who are trying to be like, hey, we can do these miracles too. But it was all just a smoke screen, so it's like, okay, is their little green magic more of a smoke screen or just a bending of the Force in a way that really shouldn't be bent?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would tend to agree with you on that latter observation. And so we get this, I guess, contrast between the two clans, or whatever you want to call it, cultures. And something that Morgan is really, she's very afraid. This is the path of fear, right? She's very afraid that the Empire is going to come back and that, she's not going to survive it. And so she is very defensive, and she's spreading that to all the other young ladies in the clan. And it just kind of shows how quickly fear can spread, and how easily the young, I guess, witches or, the Mountain Clan, that they're willing to go against their creed, their values, or just kind of like bend them a little bit. Just, oh no, we're just going to go check this out. We're just going to learn. We're just going to see. And
doesn't hurt to look. Yeah.
So, what overall lesson did you pull from this episode, or like what was the ultimate like big meaning, big takeaway that you took from Morgan's experience, and just what we saw with her experience with the Mountain Clan?
I found it really pointed to, like we see in religious orders, the obedience that they pledge to, like the mother or the order itself. And so here you see the result of the disobedience, which was tragic, to see the daughter die and, others severely injured. And the whole time that all that tragedy is happening, Morgan's in this perpetual rage where she has no idea what's happening around her, other than she's just happy to destroy something. So it was a real strong contrast where you see like the result of disobedience, especially when the mother finally comes through and says, don't assume something because you don't see it. We had a way of taking care of ourselves, and I told you that. And especially to see, like I said, the tragedy that her own daughter dies because of the disobedience.
Yeah, I like the spread of the fear and how Morgan immediately turns herself into a vehicle for that. She is angry. She wants revenge, and obviously fearful that she's going to die. And so she wants to go be strong again, be powerful, get what she thinks she needs to keep the droids from. Yeah, but in order to do that, she's got to convince these other people, because she also knows she can't do it alone, right? And so she starts using the fear, and it's sort of, for me, it was not so much like her path walking into fear, but her trying to take other people on that path and bring them with her. And I think it plays out with the next two sort of emotional states in the next two episodes as well. And it was, I don't know, it's always very interesting for me to see fear play out in people, because it's such a baseline driving force for a lot of things we do as human beings, because we live in a physical world. We have pain, which is very useful for keeping us out of a lot of different kinds of trouble. But because of that, it also generates fear, and the fear of pain will generate into other things we do, and a lot of times into anger. And it's interesting to watch her try and use her own tragedy to manipulate other people through fear into taking up the mantle and then causing that tragedy, like you said, Kathryn.
Yeah, I think what you're saying about fear is important, because something that I wrote down that the mother says is, do not give your fears such fertile ground to take root. So she wasn't saying like, just, forget about your fear completely, because it is very natural to be afraid, when you're in a dangerous situation, but don't allow that to have fertile ground, right? Don't allow that to completely take root in you. So I guess the question that you could ask is, how could Morgan have acted differently, right? And I like what you said, Kathryn, about disobedience, and we could say humility also, because she was in somebody else's culture now. She was in somebody else's home and sanctuary. And so instead of entrusting herself to, okay, they must know how to protect themselves. They must know, the best way for this situation. Instead, she just allows that fear to control her, and she doesn't give like them the benefit of the doubt. She's not humble,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that fertile ground quote really had a strong visual when you see Morgan take her hand to the ground and dig her fingers through it and then punch her fist down. So you can see right there that here she is farming the fertile, tilling the soil, and then she fills it with anger. And so it's like, that was an interesting visual to see that. And it ties into like Anakin after his mother's death, digging his fingers through the sand.
Yeah, definitely. And we all know that, when there's like a forest is burned or something, like that ash kind of adds to the fertility of the soil, right? Like it actually, it's interesting just that cycle. If you think about like the burning and the, that when there's something new that comes into your life that sort of, wrecks things, like wrecks shop, like there is that fertile ground, right, for allowing that to kind of overtake your life. But basically, what are you going to plant in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of that, let's talk about the next episode, The Path of Anger. And in this episode, we see that her fears have driven her to become a weapons specialist. She was used by the Empire to find resources. What kind of stood out to you about this point in her life and about this story?
The funny thing, the visual that I picked up that I went, oh, I can't believe that this is sticking in my head. The one mark that she still has on her forehead reminded me of the dang TIE fighter she was designing. I was like, seriously, this Y shape. And it's like, oh, yeah, she just used her last tattoo as her vengeance. I want it to look like this,
That's cool. I didn't even pick up on that.
The TIE Defender.
That was my visual.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's, I think a lot of people can relate to like the board meeting situation and like, making this grand presentation about something that you're really invested in and you really believe in. And then people are just like, okay, whatever. Goodbye. No, that was I mean, that was like another crushing moment, right? And then she has that conversation with, what, did we get his name? That particular Imperial that she talked to? I don't remember. I didn't write that down. The guy that was like working with Thrawn and Thrawn kind of sent him.
Yeah, Paleon.
Oh, okay. That was Paleon. Okay. So
best Imperial ever. Sorry.
He is one of my favorite side characters ever. Yeah. Especially when you read the Timothy Zahn books and they really develop him all the way out to signing the peace treaty, which was a beautiful moment, which is gone forever, but it was awesome. And he was just fabulous in all of this because he had learned the level-headedness enough from Thrawn to then see, wait, what's the bigger picture going on here? Oh, he's just a great character. Yeah. He's like the old grandpa who's grumpy but figures it out in the end.
Yeah, when I realized that was him, I was like, yee! More. Every time he shows up on screen, I'm super happy. So
yeah, so he kind of shows her some appreciation, gives her some kudos, and then she goes back to Corvus and she has this talk with them and with Governor Wing, who was one of my favorite characters from The Mandalorian, just randomly. I don't know why, I just really connected with him. But I was wondering if she was, based on this conversation that they have, if she was originally good intentioned at first, like well intentioned in terms of actually wanting to help the people, by taking over and giving them jobs and things like that. But maybe she just kept being hurt and feeling betrayed and everything that eventually just led her to just embrace her anger full speed. You know what I mean? So I don't know what you guys think about that, whether she was ever well-intentioned or if she was just always selfish with the people and her relationship with them.
It was interesting watching it again today and hearing the conversation where they're like, hey, you promised us jobs and prosperity. And she's like, I put up a wall. Well, she did what a lot of nasty, tyrants will do. I'm going to bring y'all in and put a wall around you, and you're going to live in my world and do what I need you to do. Mm-hmm. So just, not only that, she flies in her golden ship. Think so highly of yourself. Not only that, then it struck me. It's like, wait a minute. She still has the golden ship all the way through the Ahsoka series. And it happens to be the keystone to the ring. I was like, wow, she's really like self-absorbed with, I'm the one with all the answers and I make it all work. And that was like the feeling I got from her. She was just using their fears and stress and greediness to play off of what she wants. What's her end game? It had nothing. I don't think she had any real care for the people, which played out later on when you see what she does with them.
I don't know. I know. So I like this episode because you have sort of the anger that comes out of the rejection and what I was going to do, and now they're just going to come and strip my planets of the resources. I'm super angry about that. And then when she goes back, all of the people kind of throwing a low-level demonstration outside of her palace, being angry at her for not giving them what she promised, and her kind of internalizing that, like, all I ever get is anger from you people, and so I'm going to give it back to you kind of the same way the Empire's going to do to me. And it seems like even though what ends up happening with her and the Empire is different from what was presented in the boardroom, she doesn't let go of the anger that she has for the people that got her, to the point where she was in the boardroom. I wonder more about, like, if things had gone well, like she had been, oh yeah, we're totally going to build these and we'll do it at a facility on your planet and we'll give you control over it, like how she would have acted at that point with the people. That's an open question in my mind. But I think the anger from the first instance sets up the anger from the second instance and sort of drives her down that path. No, I'm going to treat these people like slaves and crush them under my heel.
Well, she had a bit of that attitude when she told them that you guys were all backwater and you were nobody until I showed up. And it's like, wow, okay, sorry, Midwestern here, flyover state, but no, us little backwater people know what we like. Big city, back off. No, I don't know.
Well, and that's one of the reasons she's always come off to me as like full blown imperial, because like that to me, that's like one of the hallmarks of the Empire is that no, we do it right, and the rest of you are a bunch of hicks that we don't have to pay attention to or respect your religion or care about your needs or wants. No, we're gonna do what we want because we're the Empire, and she very much like just sort of exudes that, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm. And after she has this conversation with them, and she's got this internal conflict going, then we get Rook, which was amazing.
Good.
What was your reaction, by the way, when you saw him and you saw this fight?
Besides jumping when he first jumps into the scene, it's like, oh my gosh, oh, it's Rook. No. But then I'm thinking, oh, he's holding back. Yeah, he's just playing with her. It was like, a big dog playing with a cat. They'll fight it out really good, but I felt like, yeah, he was holding back just a little bit.
Yeah. It was pretty cool to have this moment. And then we have Pillion come back and Thrawn. So Thrawn wanted Morgan to help bring about his goals. How did you think that Thrawn, then this way of them pairing up and teaming up, how does that fit into the overall Thrawn story that you're familiar with, whether legends or canon or, just how did you take this?
I'd say this is the most Thrawn has been, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because he's working for the Imperials, but you can see that he's got his own agenda going. And, he's seeking out what he needs to have the victory he wants for his people. And it was good. This was the one part of the shows that I appreciated the most. It was like, okay, now we have the good Morgan Thrawn tie-in. That's fine for me. I didn't need all the Night Sister stuff, but this was a good tie-in because I was like, all right, that's like in the newer Thrawn books, the way he works his way through people to see what do you contribute to me, and he does it even against Imperial officers' wisdom. He's like, okay, you're good for me. There's one character I still am dying to see, and he's in the books. And oh my gosh, his name is escaping me now. But he was Thrawn's little buddy in the academy, and then he ended up sending him off to go help his people in the Chiss. I can't remember. Oh, Eli Vanto, great character. Someday he'll be live action, I hope.
What? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Thrawn's front man, the commander of his army in the Ahsoka series, was named Eli. Isn't that right?
Oh, the guy with the mask on?
Yeah.
I thought it was...
Oh, it was Enoch.
Enoch. Yeah. I was like, no.
Different Bible name.
Yeah.
Different biblical.
No,
right.
Eli, he actually sent back to the Chiss Ascendancy with his own people to help them. So yeah, this Eli is now a traitor to the Empire, so it'll be interesting to see if they ever bring him back.
Yeah, maybe in the movie that they're making.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Patrick, any other thoughts on this episode?
I loved the Thrawn scene, I think, because the same reason Kathryn enumerated. It was just so very Thrawn. Every time he's been written, every time he's been shown in live action, that is what he is. He is always calculating what is my next step and what are the next 47 steps that I need to take. And Morgan represents such an interesting combination of potential uses between her obviously interesting industrial mindedness, her ability to rule, if not lead, and her what she has resource wise to offer. But the Night Sister background, which was also something, that was part of something he was testing and something he had in his mind, because he mentioned it, him or Pelion, or both of them mentioned it. And you can see kind of the gears already turning for, okay, it would be good to have one of these in my back pocket somewhere. And I have a feeling it would not shock me if he had a Jedi somewhere. He also had a back pocket, just in case, for some reason.
The only thing that could have made that scene any better is if they would have added just a Thrawn monologue about if he did like an art critique of how she set up her little community and her own place and what she was wearing. Like if he would have said something about, yeah, I knew Rook could approach you with such and such an instrument and all this other stuff because of the way you're wearing your cape or something. It's like, oh, give me some Thrawn art critique going. That'd be
cool. Totally. I totally agree with that. But it was highly satisfactory overall, I would say. And then we go right into the path of hatred. So I think this was probably like the most jarring, I would say, in terms of the timeline and the band-aidishness. So we have this New Republic, I guess, senator or representative of some kind who was originally from Corvus. And I think her name is Nadura, and she comes to petition Corvus for membership in the New Republic. But the citizens are like, oh, there's a New Republic? The Empire's gone? They don't know what's going on. And so she comes to depose Morgan and, if necessary, take her to stand trial. So after we watched this episode, what was your impression about, like, how did she go down the path of hate? Like, why was it that she was so hateful? Like, she wasn't just fearful and angry, but she had hatred within her. Where did that come from, or what did you pick up on? Because I think for me, when she says, my world has been burning since I was a child, why should this one be any different? I think about how she allowed that fear and anger, like that trauma, that grief that she had. She just never processed it. Like, she never had somebody like walk her through like how to be healthy and how to like mentally get through this, because I mean, that's very easgy to allow that to happen to yourself. Like if you just feel like, okay, I've been suffering my whole life. Why how about these people too? Like, why not everybody? Like, because I've had to deal with this, right? So you just want to take it out on somebody else, So that to me was the path of hatred. But what were your guys' takeaways on this episode?
I think if we the way I look at hatred is it's supposed to be the opposite of love. Right. And love is willing the good of the other, right? Amongst all of its other meanings, because it's the most complex word in the English language. Thanks, English, for only having one word for this concept. But, if we take it at its heart, it's willing the good of the other. It's the desire to use the resources at your hand that you can in prudence and work for the good of the other. If we look at hatred in the same way, then it's not the good of the other, but it's the evil of the other, or it's the causing the pain of the other, or you're putting something else in that spot instead of the good. And so what I see Morgan sort of go through is this, okay, I'm being threatened now, right? I've gone from I'm angry and likely bitter at these people who I decided to crush under my heel and who don't like that. And so they complain, and that makes me bitter. And so I'm festering that the whole time. And now this new person shows up with this new republic that crushes like my dream of revenge, whatever that dream was at that point, which was honestly, that was the kind of Band-Aidish part for me. It was like, what does she want revenge on, or what is she trying to get? But then she takes it to the next level. I was like, okay, well, if she tells the guy when she crushes the comm link that nobody's coming, but she doesn't believe that. I'm fairly certain, being an intelligent person. So it's time to make things burn, right? And the first thing I'm going to take away from them is their beloved forest. And we can see it's beloved because the minute she starts burning it, everybody falls into despair. And so she is now using her power to actively cause pain instead of okay, I'm forcing you to work in my factories in terrible conditions for basically slave labor wages. I'm still using you to get to a goal, which is terrible. But it's not the same as I'm just beating you up because it's fun, or because I want to, or because I hate you. And that's what she's doing at this point. She's moved from I'm using you to get to an end to, no, I'm going to make you suffer like I did just because.
Yeah. When she made that statement about my world, was burning, is burning, first thing I thought it was the end of the first episode, where she's standing there and the mother is telling her, I'm sorry, you've chosen this path, and everything's just burning behind her. So it's just going to fester and burn behind her in her mind forever. And then, like you said, Patrick, though, it's like, okay, what's her end goal? What is she working for now? She knows the Empire's gone. She has to have the information. So now the thing is, there's one little key to this whole Thrawn story that has not been mentioned. And it was in one of the Legends books where Thrawn had foretold his return 10 years later. He told a group of people, hold down the fort, I will be back in 10 years. Well, no one knew that there was a Thrawn clone in the basement of the fort that was ready to emerge after 10 years' time and take over. But in this case, now it's like, okay, if we tie it into the new story that we have going, did Thrawn tell Morgan before he was taken away by the space whales that I will be back and you will be part of bringing me back? Because that's the whole thing is. And even Paleon seems to hint at it in The Mandalorian, that Thrawn is coming back. So they must all be awaiting his return to bring everything together. Like, he was always part of that in the book storylines. So it'll be interesting to see. Was that what she was just working for mindlessly to return Thrawn? I think so. I mean, Ahsoka made a big deal of it, of where's Thrawn? So yeah, definitely a lot of burning hate that she just was not letting go of anything. And I think that when the ambassador returned, she was the one person that stood up to her in the beginning. So it's like, okay, you're the straw. I'm done. This place is going down. Set it on fire. It was neat to see that that's why all the trees were burnt in Mandalorian. So finally the answer to that. It's like, okay, check that box. Here's how it happened. But
yeah. I mean, it was that the burning was very poetic because it brought us right back to that very first scene of the very first episode of this series, where everything's burning around Morgan. But now I think it just kind of shows that her hatred is now the cause of that burning. Like, it is now the destructive force. Whereas before, I think she almost, it's kind of like you become what you hate, like if you focus that, like, all of your energy on hating something, like because they wronged you or because whatever, like she hated the Empire for what they did to her and her family and her culture. And my, interpretation was that she wanted to, have enact some kind of revenge on the Empire. But she couldn't. And so, so I think ultimately she becomes what she hates. But it's just very poetic. I think it's very Star Wars in that sense. She's now burning somebody else's world where somebody burned hers. And then you mentioned that ambassador of the New Republic, that she is very brave. And I think this writing was just a little bit, tell, not show. But when she's like lying there dying and she's talking to Governor Wing, she says, "Be brave no matter how dark things get." He says, "I can't." And she says, "You can. Help will come. You must be ready to do your part, even if it is small. You can make a difference." Which is very Star Wars, but I think it was a little bit cliche in the way that she said it. But he does play a small part when, Din Djarin and Ahsoka are working against Morgan, and he does a very small part to help in that process. But ultimately, they're freed in that episode of The Mandalorian, right? So, so I think that was also very Star Wars. I don't know if it was a little cliche. Maybe the New Republic is just like slightly cliche, and they're kind of goody two shoes. Now we have overcome, the big bad, right? We're the good guys.
Yeah.
It was neat to see an ambassador on a mission like that, because so many of the books would have all the ambassador missions. You have Leia going out on missions and other people. And so it's like, okay, it's nice to see them actually reaching out, going, "Hey, we won. Let's come together." So it was nice to see. It kind of tied in some Legends stuff for me that way, which was nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing, when the guards are burning the forest, they play Dies Irae again. So it was also like poetic in that sense as well. So I like that. And Patrick, you mentioned that we hear on the comlink that Bo-Katan receives the distress signal that the I guess astromech sent off, but Morgan destroys the comlink. So to me, that was also that was kind of like the last sort of emphasizing that she is saying, no one's coming. Like, she wants other people to suffer the way that she suffered. Nobody is coming to help you, just like nobody came to help me. Right. And I think sometimes that's what we kind of can tell ourselves, that, if so-and-so person hurt me and I have to live with it, then, if I hurt somebody else, it's just because, they have to live with that because I had to suffer too. I think that mindset, we just kind of can tell ourselves that to try to comfort ourselves, console ourselves, but ultimately it doesn't give us actual peace. Like, obviously Morgan Elsbeth is not at peace.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it speaks very much to the cyclical nature of sin, that, when you have, when you're hurt and damaged, if your response to that ends up being to hurt and damage others or to sin, then you will get caught in the same cycle that hurts you. And, it's an extraordinarily human thing to watch play out. And I like how it's sort of, fear to anger to hatred. One of the things I really like is that by the time you see Morgan burning the forest, she's not even mad anymore. Like, there's no emotionality to it. It's just go burn the forest. And like, it's very much the revenge is a dish best served cold kind of a thing, where she's acting on this desire to hurt others, but there's no real feeling behind it or emotion behind it anymore. She's just caught in that cycle at that point.
It's the tragedy of Morgan Elsbeth. If only somebody had been there Actually, somebody was. I guess the Mountain Clan was ultimately there.
Right. That's the problem. Somebody was there.
And she didn't listen.
Said no.
It's funny. It's like she rejected it initially, but then plays it out in her mind later as no one was there for me. And it was because was no one there for you in the way you wanted them to be there? Like you wanted a group of people to join your revenge, but nobody was playing into her revenge plan.
And now Thrawn is like, he's like the kid at school that comes and like takes advantage of the little like, person that wants to, I don't know, that's angry and, can punch people, like he's the guy that just like, he's coming to use her. And it's really sad that she ends up teaming up with him ultimately. I mean, we all enjoy the story, but at the same time, we just think about her as a person, like it's really sad.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, I mean, Thrawn, I love Thrawn. Don't get me wrong. Great character. But like in the end, like there are no moral calculations to Thrawn. There is, it's almost like he is a completely amoral character. Like there's no good or evil. There's just what I want. And I mean, it's fairly sociopathic when you really get down to it. And Morgan is just another piece on the board that I get to play chess with. Which is just makes him so terrifying as a villain.
It's the cold calculation.
Yeah.
That it's like it just plays out in his head. And if it doesn't play out the way I want it to, well, that meant that someone else wasn't quite playing the game I needed to be played.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, any other observations, any other thoughts that you wanted to share about these 3 episodes?
There's just one visual I really liked seeing, and that was watching the people in the village that Morgan was in charge of, seeing them when she's first there, and they're standing up to her, and everything's still a little bright and colorful, and they're like, fully, hey, this isn't right, and you're not doing what you said you were going to do, to then seeing them completely broken down and everything gray and dreary, and all their backs are hunched over, and you see the weight of her dictatorship essentially over them, and the fear that they have weighing down on them. So it was a good, strong visual and something we need to keep in mind.
Yeah, Patrick.
I just like I said, like from a time, because of the time skips, it feels a little off just because of how far we jump. And it does feel a little Band-Aid-ish because it's kind of like I still don't have resolved on the whole revenge question. And I mean, because if it's me, I'm going after Grievous. And then when I find out, no, he was just a puppet of the Emperor, well, then I'm going after him, So like, where was she in that whole cycle? But as
maybe she found out he survived.
Yeah.
Maybe she got the inside intel.
Yeah. Okay.
Somehow.
Yeah. But I liked him as more or less an explanation for a lot of what she is in the show or in the other shows that she's in. And I enjoyed it as kind of a, bringing every time Palion's on screen or Thrawn, it was good. So I liked it from that. And I liked it from the cyclical nature of hatred and sin and fear and anger. And I think it's nice that you get those 3 episodes and then you get the next 3, which show you there actually is a way to break out of this. This is not like nobody is trapped. Like it might hurt, it might be painful, it might cost you a lot to break out, but you can get out.
Yeah. Dude, great transition into the conclusion of our podcast here. So guys, what do you think of the Tales of the Empire Morgan Elsbeth story? Or send us your feedback about the Barriss Offee story. We want to hear what you guys thought, and if you caught anything that we missed. Definitely want to hear your Star Wars questions, comments, anything is welcome. Send it to us via email, starwars@sqpn.com, or you can find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. You can leave a comment there or on Instagram. We are there at StarQuest Network, or simply write to us on X, where we are at SQPN. And if you want to continue chatting with us like all the time, which is so cool, you can go to our Discord server, join hundreds of other fans of this show and other StarQuest shows. Just go to sqpn.com/Discord to join us there. And if you want to go like next level, and you enjoy geeking out with us, you can boldly proclaim your geekiness by getting some official Secrets of Star Wars gear. We have merch. I don't know if you guys know, but it's not just t-shirts. We have notebooks, we have stickers, we have other cool things. So, oh yeah, totally.
Oh, heck yeah. Sorry.
So the design is actually represents some of our OG panelists' personas, and it says in Arabesh, "Finding hope in a galaxy far, far away." So if you think that's cool, just check out our SQPN merch at sqpn.com/merch. All right, guys. So we will continue our coverage of the Tales of the Empire on our next episode as our crew discusses the story of Barriss Offee. Make sure to subscribe to Secrets of Star Wars so you don't miss out in your favorite podcast app. And while you're at it, hey, subscribe to our YouTube channel, StarQuest Media. And you can find previous episodes at our website, sqpn.com/Star Wars. So until next time, thank you, Kathryn Laffrey, for joining us on The Secrets of Star Wars.
Thank you, Angela. This was fun.
And Patrick Mason, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, I am Angela Sealana, the one in the middle of the Bendu, and thank you for joining us on The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. Pray Station Portable. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at starquest.fm/PSP.